Hey yo, what up guys, it's Vassal. Today I'm going to show you how to set up each subclass for Trials of Osiris, starting with the Striker Titan here. So what you're going to want to do is, you're going to want to use for the grenade, either the lightning grenade or the flashbang. I prefer the lightning grenade just because it's more powerful and it's better at killing. The flashbang is good for enclosing areas, but other than that I prefer the lightning. And for the next one you want to use catapult, just because it increases the speed movement. And for the super, you're going to want to use either aftermath or shockwave. You can't really go wrong with either. Aftermath will sort of close off a revive area, but shockwave will extend your kill radius. So it's really up to you. I prefer shockwave though. And then next for Storm Fist here, you can really use anything you prefer. I normally use Amplify just because I like to get my super faster. But I mean, the next best thing I could recommend is probably Discharge. And then as you can also see, I go for an agility setup for my classes. And so onto the next tree here, you can use Aftershock is what I prefer, just because you want to get the most out of your lightning grenade, just because it's so powerful and so efficient at killing people. And yeah, just as you can see here again, I prefer raw speed and agility on my characters. And for the final tree, I would use shoulder charge or unstoppable. It's really up to you. The last tree isn't really that big of a deal. Alright, moving on here to the Defender Titan. I would really not use the subclass, it's probably the weakest subclass, but if you have to use it, I would use the Magnetic Grenade here, the Catapult, and then for the super, I would use Blessings of Light instead of Armor of Light, just because Blessings of Light will give you a shield when you go outside the Ward of Dawn. And then you're going to want to use Unbreakable for your Force Barrier, that way it continually recharges even faster. And then you're going to want to use Bastion instead of Relentless, just because Bastion will make your Ward of Dawn last longer. And then for the final perk, you want to use Illuminated so your shield lasts longer. Okay, now moving on to the Void Walker here. You're going to want to use either Axion Bolt or Scatter Grenade. If you have the Nothing Manacles, you should be using the Scatter Grenade. You're going to want to use Blink, you're going to want to use Lance for your Nova Bomb, and then for this tree right here for Energy Drain, you're going to want to use Lifesteal, because Lifesteal will give you back your health as soon as you kill someone with it, and I think that's really important in Trials. And then for my Warlocks here, you're going to see I use Armor. And I'm going to tell you more about that in a little bit here. But moving on to this next tree, you're going to want to use Annihilate or Angry Magic. Angry Magic just because it'll give you a little bit more armor boost, but I like Annihilate more. And then for the last tree, you're going to want to use Embrace the Void just so the Energy Drain will proc on it and you'll get some of your health back. You can also use Vortex Mastery. It's really up to you. Moving on here to the Sunslinger, you're going to want to use the Firebolt Grenade. It's really the only grenade you really should be using. And then you're going to want to use Focus Glide, Fireborn, and Flame Shield. You're going to want to proc for Toughness and Armor. You're going to want to use either Viking Funeral or Radiant Will, depending on what you use for the last tree. You can use either Touch of Flame, which should be used with Viking Funeral, or you could use Gift of the Sun, and then you can use Radiant Will. It's really up to you. I prefer using Viking Funeral and Touch of Flame, just because you'll do more damage, but other people like having more grenades. That's just your opinion. And then you're going to see here, this is why I proc for armor, just because the ram here, it gives you a lot more increased armor, and you really can survive through a lot of things. Okay, now moving on here to the Hunter Gunslinger class, you're going to want to use either the Trip Mine Grenade or the Incendiary Grenade. I prefer the Trip Mine Grenade just because you're more likely to get a kill with it, and it's just easier to use. I'm used to it now. For the jump, I prefer either triple jump. You could also use higher jump. It really doesn't matter. And for Golden Gun, you should probably be using Deadeye. I know many people use Combustion, but there's not really a high chance of all three players in Trials of Osiris standing next to each other. And then moving on, you're going to want to use for the throwing knife either Knife Juggler or Incendiary Blade. It really doesn't matter. I prefer Knife Juggler though. And then moving on, you're going to want to proc for Agility again. And then for the next one here, you're going to want to use Scavenger, just because you tend to pick up a lot of special ammo. I know that's what I do, so that's why I like using Scavenger. And Gunslinger's Trance really isn't that helpful in Trials of Osiris. Then moving on here, you're going to want to proc for Speed again. And then for the last tree here, you're going to want to use either Over the Horizon or Gambler's Dagger. I prefer Gambler's Dagger because you never know when an extra knife can come in handy. And then moving on to my favorite subclass, the Blade Dancer, you're going to want to use the Arc Bolt Grenade here. And then moving on, you're going to want to use the Blank. And then for the super, you're going to want to use Razor's Edge. Don't bother yourself with Showstopper, it's practically useless. Then for the melee, you're going to want to use Backstab just because you will kill most enemies in one hit. And sometimes it'll even proc in front of the enemies, so that's pretty useful. And then moving on, you're going to want to use this perk over here called Quick Draw instead of Fleet Footed, just because Quick Draw is such a great perk to have in Trials of Osiris. It's really useful. And then for the last trade, you're going to want to use Hungering Blade instead of Stalker, because invisibility is practically useless in Trials of Osiris, guys. And that's it for me. Peace out. Later, guys.